What's up, guys? It's Meg. I don't even know what to say here. I've already recorded this once and I fucked it all up. So I'm recording this again, and I'm recording this at a weird angle, and I'm in an annoyed mood right now. So there's just so much to talk about this episode, and you know, when you've already talked about it once for like 15 minutes, it's kind of hard to go back and talk about it again. So today we're discussing The Walking Dead Season 6, Episode 6, called Always Accountable. I don't know how great this review is going to be. I'm going to tell you right now that I love where the storyline is going here. So all of everything that happened in this episode is leading us down a path to the Saviors. 100%. 100% this group that was chasing after Dwight and Sherry and Tina, 100% these guys are the Saviors. So many clues, so many hints. Comic readers would have picked up on it immediately. My issue with it is I have never had to watch an episode with subtitles before. And I freaking hated it. I hated it. I get it, Daryl mumbles sometimes, but even like some of the dialogue was just not natural. Like the Sasha and Abe conversation. So I understood it the second time I watched it. The first time I watched it, I was like, what the hell are you guys talking about? I don't understand. I can't hear half of it. For those of you who don't know, I do have a slightly like not as good hearing in my right ear here. So sometimes I attribute needing to turn the volume up really loudly to that. But I'm telling you, through this entire episode, I had subtitles on because there were so many points in different conversations where I was like, what are you saying? What words are you using? Because I can't understand it, and I can't like wrap my brain around it, and I started feeling really stupid. So I'm hoping that I'm not the only one who feels like this. So upon watching it a second time, I understood it a lot better. First, I wanted to talk about Sasha and Abe and their conversations. Was really surprised that they're going down this route with Sasha and Abe. Now, I thought it was really funny because remember when the Comic-Con trailer premiered and a lot of people were like shipping Abe and Sasha because they were riding in a car together, and a lot of us were making fun of those people because we're like, dude, you can't even ride in a car with someone without them shipping the two people. Kind of funny. I'm sure those people that were shipping them are laughing at us now. But the conversation, so since the beginning of the season, Abraham has been calling Sasha on her lack of control, being out of control. You know, he brings up in this episode where she almost cut his arm off. She gave him like surface like scratch with that knife. But you know, I mean, he was a little shocked by it, but she was out of control for a while. She was. And she, in this episode, she starts calling him on his bullshit, you know, on the fact that he's acting just as out of control. He's taking unnecessary risks. He's tempting fate. We see him tempt fate again when he's on that kind of like fence thing, trying to get the RPG, the launcher off the walker. We see him there where he's literally staring death in the face and begging it, you know, to get him. And they've already had this conversation, and where she calls him on his shit, basically. She says, you know, you're out of control too. Oh, my lights are flickering. Side note here, it is incredibly stormy here in Portland right now, and all the street lights and traffic lights are not working at the moment, and so if the power goes out here, I'm screwed. This video is never getting up. God, my camera stopped recording again. I'm gonna kill this camera. Fuck, if it didn't cost me so much. Okay, I don't even know what I was saying now. Abe and Sasha. Abe, he's tempting fate. Okay. He found some RPGs. He got the launcher for it, if that's what it's even called. I don't know what it's... I'm gonna kill this camera. It's turning off every like 5 seconds now. I can't even get a sentence out. Scott Gimple, everything that he puts into every single episode has, you know, meaning and only furthers the story, which has been said in a couple interviews so far by different cast members, especially Norman Reedus just did an interview with a couple different places, and he says everything is there for a reason. So I was thinking about these RPGs that Abe has, And I was thinking about, remember when in All Out War, this is a very short comic spoiler, but you may not want to hear this. Remember in All Out War, didn't they have, I have to go back and read it, but didn't they have grenades where they launched them over the wall at Negan's group? And that's really kind of what turned the tide in the fight against Negan. Wasn't that, I'm gonna have to read it, but correct me if I'm wrong. But I immediately, when I saw these RPGs, I was like, we're not gonna see these right away. I don't even think they're gonna use them for the Walker Herd. I think that it would be really cool to see them saved for All Out War, and then have them come back into play again, and we're like, oh yeah, Abe has those. I mean, I think that would be pretty awesome. Okay, I'm done with Abe and Sasha. Ship them if you want. I don't really care. I'm kind of sad for Rosita, but you know, the storyline is what it is. It progresses the story. I'm definitely interested to see more of Sasha and Abe and kind of see where that goes and how that story plays out. I thought it was, Abraham was very confident, and Sasha didn't say no. She didn't say no. So, yeah, he basically said that he really likes that she calls out his bullshit, and I think they're kind of on the same page right now, and I enjoyed it. Once I actually understood what they were saying, I enjoyed it. Back to Daryl and Dwight. So in my reaction video afterwards in the comments, I said I wasn't quite 100% that was Dwight. Really what turned it around for me, and I have an issue with why it's, if it is Dwight, if he is Dwight, if this dude is Dwight, okay, he has the crossbow, he has Daryl's bike, which, okay, great. Dwight in the comics had the crossbow. But they're moving this Negan story so quickly, like, Dwight has to get captured, or he has to return to, you know, the saviors, and he has to get his face burned, and then he has to, because when Dwight was introduced in the comics, he was like Negan's right-hand man. Am I wrong in that? I mean, it has been a little bit since I've read it, but wasn't he like Negan's right-hand man? I mean, he seemed very loyal, and he may not like Negan, but he was like willing to do Negan's bidding. And I don't know. I mean, maybe I can kind of see how it plays out, but I feel like it's very soon for him to be so loyal to Negan if Negan is going to be introduced in the end of season 6 here. I felt like that was a little off, because now we've seen Dwight. We know he's really, you know, he's a good guy that has done, you know, I mean, I don't think they wanted to turn on Daryl. They appreciated his help. It wasn't like they're these evil people. They need to escape, and they need to get away, and you know, it is what it is. You do things that you might not like doing when you're trying to survive, especially when you're trying to avoid such a terrible group. So I just didn't really like that. I mean, if it is Dwight, that's great. You know, we'll see the crossbow again. We'll see him once he's got his face burned and stuff, but I don't know, I felt weird about it. The reason I know that this is Sherry, and really what sealed the deal that this was actually Dwight, was the fact that throughout the episode, I never actually heard her name, but when I had subtitles on, they were calling her Honey. And in interviews and in photos, they've called the brown-haired girl Honey, and then the short blonde-haired girl was Tina. But at one point, when Wade and the Saviors roll into the forest, Tina is, you know, she's going into that diabetic shock type thing. I don't know much about diabetes, but I know that she needs the insulin, and they haven't given her the insulin shot. So she's laying there in Honey's arms, and she says, oh, I have to find it. She says, "Love you, Cher. You didn't have to do this for me." And she called her Cher. Sherry Comics sold it for me. I was like, okay, but I didn't really understand why it was like Honey, and then she called her Cher. I don't know, it was weird. Why were they calling her Honey? Did we actually hear someone in the episode call her Honey, or was that just the subtitles and in the interviews and stuff? I don't know, it was weird about that. Everything was very confusing. Even the forest, you know, the conversations in the forest with Daryl. Daryl always mumbles. It's freaking annoying. It's one of the biggest things I hate about Daryl, is I get that the character is just kind of, he's never really like spoken up for himself. So when he speaks, he's always kind of like more mellow and quiet. But the grunts and the speaking under his breath sort of thing is freaking annoying, especially for me when I could not hear or understand what he was saying. And then the conversation with Dwight and Sherry and Tina, when they're like explaining how they burn the forest and stuff, I had to listen to it a second time before I understood what they were actually talking about. And you know, some of the phrases like when Dwight thinks that Daryl is part of the Saviors, he says, "You feel you gotta kneel? Fair enough. We don't." Just even the "you feel you gotta kneel," I mean, it's like this rhyming game. You can obviously, I mean, I'm hoping I'm not the only one who had trouble understanding what was going on here. Again, watching it the second time, I understood all the conversation, and everything was pointing towards Negan. I mean, even up to the "we earned what we took." You feel you gotta kneel, that's kneeling, submitting to this guy in order, doing his bidding in order to get 3 square meals a day. And then what sold it for me that these are for sure the Saviors was when Wade, who we did not see his upper half at all. We didn't see his upper half. I'm wondering if he's got some face burnt thing going on as well. Maybe they changed names. I don't remember a Wade in the comics, but you know, they're always more than capable of changing names yet having characters, you know, sort of the same. But they showed the other guy's face. Anyways, he says, where is it here? Looking at my notes real fast. Oh, so the guy gets his arm bit. They chop his arm off. They're like, walk it off. And he says over the radio, and he has a radio. Remember that. They have radios. Time to go home. And the guy on the radio says, "Are you sure?" And he says, he only wanted to take this so far. He only wanted to take this so far. He only wants ass that's willing, you know? And that's, I mean, that's the Negan and the wives. And I mean, I'm not going to say more because comic spoilers here, but come on. I can't imagine any comic fan out there believes that these are anybody else other than the Saviors. I mean, it just is. We know it is. Moving right along, Daryl asks them the questions, and he is willing to, he's trying to basically recruit them. He's never had to recruit on his own before, and he knows that these people are good. He's helped these people. He freaking helped them bury, Tina dies. I forgot to say Tina dies, you know that. But he helped them bury Tina and the other 2 friends, and it was just like Dwight just turned on him. And I don't know, sometimes, you know, when you put yourself in that shoe, in their shoes, Dwight and Sherry's shoes, you'd probably do the same thing. I mean, if you saw a way out, even if Daryl helped you, you don't owe this guy anything, you know? I mean, you kind of do because he saved your butt, but they don't know him, and they don't want to go back to this, you know, situation and stuff that they were in. So they steal his motorcycle, they steal his crossbow, and I loved at the end when she says, "We're sorry," and Daryl says, "You're gonna be." And I thought that was really great foreshadowing here, where not only, you know, maybe Daryl's referring to, well, you're gonna be sorry if you're gonna go back to the Saviors, or if I ever catch you again, or anything like that could have been his meaning behind it. But we know, or we don't know, but my guess is that the conversation, sorry, I'm reading my notes here. The conversation was from Daryl when he's talking to them. He says, "You're gonna kneel." Like, basically he's arguing with Dwight as he's giving the crossbow over. He says, "You gonna kneel?" And he asks them if they're going back there. "Are you gonna kneel?" And Dwight doesn't respond. And then Sherry says, "We're sorry." And, you know, they drive off, and he says, "You're gonna be." And I'm wondering, either 2 things. Either Dwight goes back to the Saviors because Tina's dead now. And I got the hint that Tina was potentially one of his wives. And she wanted out, and they were saving her and rescuing her. And Sherry and Dwight were probably not, you know, they were part of the community. They said they've been a part of the community since the very beginning, but I don't think Sherry was one of his wives or anything. I think they were rescuing Tina, taking Tina away. Now that she's dead, maybe they will go back if they feel they don't have any other choice, or they're gonna get caught. I mean, either way, they're gonna get caught, or they're gonna decide to go back. Dwight's gonna get his face burnt. Sherry's gonna become a wife because, you know, she's gonna have to work her way back up. There's that. Okay, I'm just gonna wrap up this review because this camera has turned off so many times, and it makes me lose my train of thought, and I can't remember what I was talking about. And I'm just really frustrated at this point for multiple things. Life in general is very frustrating. This camera is very frustrating, and trying to get out everything I want to say and having the camera turn off is very frustrating. And also this episode was kind of frustrating. So how many times did I just say frustrating? At the very end of the episode, we see Daryl and Abe and Sasha get back together. I was not expecting that. I thought that Daryl would be alone for a while. They're back together. They're feeling good. They've escaped with a fuel truck. Is there fuel in there? I don't know. I'm guessing there was I mean, that was Patty. That was who, that truck was what Dwight and Sherry were looking for. They were looking for that truck. If you guys missed it, on the license plate it says Patty. They were looking for that, and it's a fueling company, so I'm assuming that that truck may have had fuel in it. There was definitely a reason they wanted it bad. And now, you know, like we know, Scott Gimple never puts anything in there that's not going to be useful for the story. So they have this fuel truck. Be very interesting to see what their plan is for that moving forward now that they have it. Daryl calls on the radio, and he's trying to get a hold of Rick or anybody, and he hears static, and he hears kind of a voice, but he can't tell what it is, and then he hears help. Now, the first time I'm watching this, I immediately was like, Glenn. It's got to be Glenn. It has to be Glenn. But I thought that it sounded more like Rick. When I watched it a second time, I don't think it sounded like Rick. I don't think it was very generic, like, help. It wasn't even like anyone screaming for help, and it didn't even really sound that desperate. It was just like, help. And I couldn't, like, I thought, well, yeah, maybe that could sound like Glenn, maybe. But I'm wondering, so my thought is, and I thought this from the very beginning, I don't think it's Glenn. It could be. Norman Reedus in an interview said that it very specifically was not Glenn. And I feel like he could maybe try and lead us away from, you know, be like, it might not be Glenn, it might be somebody else, if he was trying to, like, if it really was Glenn, but he was trying to, like, steer us away. I just feel like he wouldn't say a definitive no, because fans would get so angry that he lied in an interview. You know what I mean? That's just really what I feel. I feel like if he just straight up lied in an interview and was like, no, that's definitely not Glenn, and then it turns out to be Glenn, I don't know, I would feel weird about that. But a lot of people seem to think that Norman would just lie in the interview to mislead us. So I don't know. My first thought, though, was that, is it a trap? These saviors had radios, and if they knew that Dwight was out there, and they knew that Sherry was out there, and Tina, they don't know that Tina's dead, they could very well hear someone on a radio saying, you know, Rick, you out there? Anybody out there? And they say help to draw. I mean, we don't know, but there's a good chance, I feel like, that it could be some sort of trap. And we think Abe and Sasha and Daryl are heading back to Alexandria, and in reality, maybe they are going to head away thinking they're helping someone in their group, and it could be a trap set by the saviors to lure them in. If not, it could be somebody back at Alexandria. We know that they were driving back. We don't know how close they were to Alexandria, but they were close enough to feel like they could get Rick on the radio. And Rick was headed back, you know, was fairly close because he was in the RV. That was the last time they spoke. So, you know, they are fairly close to Alexandria. Tobin had a radio. We don't know for sure if he lost it or not. So there is a chance that there's a radio. Sorry, my dogs are being loud. There is a chance that there's a radio back at Alexandria. Also, it could be Glenn. He had a radio on him. It could be. I more than anything, I want it to be. I do. I really do. Or it could be someone who's rescued Glenn. I think there's a lot of theories flying around that Jesus rescues Glenn. I don't know. I honestly, like, I have no idea. I have not seen any spoilers yet. So if you guys have seen spoilers, please don't post them in this video. But yeah, it's kind of up in the air. What do you guys think? Who is on the radio? I know like 90% of you are gonna say Glenn. Okay, that'll be our question for this episode of my review. So in the comments, I'm gonna put the question, who was on the radio, and you guys just tell me Glenn or whoever you think it is, okay? And then we'll do a tally. I meant to, in this review, do a tally of the last question I asked, but I forgot, so I don't have that for you. Sorry. But I think it's been really fun asking these questions in the comments and then having you guys respond, because I get a lot of responses, and it's kind of cool to see all of your theories and like your reasoning behind like who you would pick to die by Lucille, or is Jesse gonna live or die. I thought that was really interesting because that was like 50-50. I mean, there's a huge fan base here that wants Jesse to live and a huge fan base that wants her to die. So I thought that was pretty cool. I'm really excited to see what actually happens there. All right, you guys. this review was terrible. I'm very sorry. I'm very sorry. I'm sorry for the lighting. I'm sorry for the noise. I don't know. Sometimes life is just shitty and it gets in the way of doing, yeah, and gets in the way because my camera just turned off again. Fuck. Okay, I'm done. I love you guys. I hope you guys have a fantastic day. I'll see you in some other video at some point. I don't know.